Hello, creatives. I am so excited to be with you this evening. Welcome to my studio. My name is Linda Bratten. I know it doesn't look that way when you read it, but I am a national educator with Baby Lock, which means I get to share with you my love of Baby Lock machines, products, and accessories. I am the creative force behind Linda Bratten Creations, and I'm going to show you some basic steps on how you can get started doing background fills with some very simple shapes. So let's go to the machine and get it set up. I am working on the Baby Lock Solaris today, but any machine that has a straight stitch can be set up to do this. Now, I've already got this set, so let me go back here. In your utility stitches, and we're going to go ahead and delete that, you want to use a center justified stitch. So that would be something like 1-03, or my favorite is 1-04, because if I need to do a reinforcement, it's in the same spot. If you're in your quilting menu, you would want to use Q-01, which is that same stitch. It's just in the quilting menu. Then the last thing you need to do is you need to be able to lower your feed dogs. And on our top of the line machines, it is easy as pushing a button in the stitch edit. That's it. But here's what happened when I pushed that button. You're going to notice, first of all, the presser foot has changed, but it lowered my feed dogs. It released the presser foot pressure, and it increased the tension because this machine has more than 12 inches. So there's a lot of things that if you don't have a machine that does it with one touch of a button, you may have to set up on your own. Now, in my workspace here, I do have some sort of a Teflon slider. This one happens to be a Supreme slider. It is a small one. Oops, as I move it around, that's not what I want happen. But what it does is it covers the bridges between where the of course, in this one, I still have my embroidery arm on, but it bridges where maybe your extension table and the base of your machine join. That's just one of those things. And I do have white thread in here. Now, I chose white thread because my sample is a light colored baby quilt. However, you're going to notice with the bold thread I used prior, the stitches are very, very evident. Now, if you are a newbie, I'm going to recommend that you use a variegated color thread, because what that does is that will match your fabric at some point in time, and so your eye can't track and pick out imperfections. I'm also going to recommend that you get a polyester thread and go ahead and put it on the bobbin as well as on the top. I always recommend the same weight, or if you're going to put a lesser weight, needs to be on the bobbin. But that polyester thread has a little bit of give, which allows you to, if you're new and you're stitching, you may push and pull, and that's going to just let it have a little bit of freedom, a little bit of tug space. Let's go that way. I don't have a single stitch needle plate on, because when I'm teaching free motion quilting to newbies, I want to make sure that they can still get their rhythm before they try to engage that straight stitch. Needle plate can sometimes be a hindrance because you can actually hit it and break a needle. I do have a 90 or 100 top stitch needle in my machine, and that's going to help me protect my thread as it goes up and down, in and out of all those layers. So let's take a look at what we're going to do today. And those of you that watch the video know that I like to use the cursive alphabet. I know, boo hiss, right? But I always think this is going to be, it's going to be code someday for those people who don't know how to read it. So we're just going to, we'll make it work. What I like to tell people to do is use what you know. And so I know the cursive alphabet. And what I'm going to share with you today is loops. So when you practice something, I say give yourself a grid. That's going to give you perimeters so that you have boundaries and you don't feel like you have to do the entire thing. And these boundaries help you develop shapes and just fundamental movement. Now, if you're a long armer, I would hold my pen like this and draw. Okay? That's going to engage that muscle memory just like you would be holding the handle of your long arm machine. If you're a tabletop person like I am, go ahead and just tape your dry erase marker and practice moving your paper. That's a really great way just to get different types of muscle memory built up. But what I want you to do is start doodling and start practicing with a grid. Now you can just have some line paper and just do some vertical lines. But I like to give myself at least a 1 inch grid because most of our battings can be quilted 4 inches apart. So you don't want to get in the habit of quilting micro areas or really small areas because in reality you can make fairly large motifs and still have them be adequate for the batting. So what I like to have you do is make an O. And as I make an O, I'm going to come in here along the bottom. I'm going to touch the right side of my grid, the top of my grid, and come back down on the left side and then travel on over to the next unit. And I'm going to practice making some O's. And if it's slightly flat on the bottom here, guys, it's going to look round. That's the beauty of this. Now, of course, this is not a perfect grid. But when I get a few of those made, I'm going to pause and do it upside down. Oop, I can't talk, guys. Upside down and in reverse. What this is going to help me do is become non-directional when I'm drawing or stitching motifs. So that's one of those things, those keys, is to practice doing it like you normally would, writing your alphabet, but then come back and do it in the reverse and upside down. That's just going to build better muscle memory. Then I tell you to warm up. So after you've done some drawing, I'm going to have you take it to your machine. And of course, this has already been practiced on, guys. And I'm going to zoom you in so you get a little better view. I think I can do this and not make you totally nauseous. Hopefully my hands won't be in the way here too much. But we're just going to practice. This is a drawn 1-inch grid, so I'm just going to lower my feed dogs here. I have not used my thread cutter because I want my tails to be long. But I'm going to insert my needle, whoop, and bring it up, lift my presser foot, and then I'm just going to floss underneath that presser foot, and that will bring up that bobbin thread to the top of my project. Bringing that bobbin thread up, or managing your threads to the top of your surface, is a really good practice, especially if you ever want to get into long arm quilting. You're just building up the skill set so that you don't have any threads on the back that can make a bird's nest, or that would wrap around your encoder wheels or your gears underneath if you're a long arm quilter. All right, so I do have a little bit of tack. I like to use a product called Lickety Grip. It's found in the scrapbook section. It is like for paper correlation, but it is archival and acid free. So I really feel good about using this on fabric, and it washes away. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a few stitches to anchor my free motion. So here we go. We're just in and out in the same spot basically. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my circles. And I hope you can see what I'm doing. I am using white thread. As I mentioned earlier, I think I used a really teal to do my video. And all of my imperfections showed. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do the open spaces on that little quilt with some white thread so it doesn't look quite as obvious. But hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, so anytime these intersect here, I like to call these pause points. They give you the opportunity to reassess, readjust your hands, or even change direction in which you're quilting. And I don't know if you noticed, but I always went long and then came back in and filled my negative space. I went long and came back in. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, just in the opposite direction. I'm going to come long, come back around, and then go long again and come back around to fill in that negative space. Here we go. And remember, you are, when you lower your feed dogs, you are the stitch length regulator. So you don't have to worry about, you will come into your own the more you practice as far as stitch length. If you have a stitch sync regulation or a stitch length regulator on your machine, it becomes like a training wheel that gives you the muscle, lets you develop those skills before you have to go on to your major project. Okay, so this is looking good. I'm warmed up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to do some loops. So I'm bringing over my pencil here again, and let me see if I can just back up a little bit so you're not quite all the way in my face. All right, so if this is my quilting area here, maybe my quilt block, What I like to do is I never want to start here because we read from left to right here in the United States. So I like to either start in a seam at the bottom, in the middle, somewhere other than here. And I try not to go in a line across because that just encourages people to be able to pick out imperfections. And that's not what I want. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to do some loops. And of course, I'm going to try to be very non-directional and just fill in any space I might have that allows me to have some fun, fill up this area, and quilt the entire space. So that's what I'm going to try to do. All right. And some of them probably aren't exactly the same size, but they're close enough. And the fact that I'm using a white thread that's going to be disappearing on my llama blocks, you'll see here in just a minute, I have llamas that we're actually quilting, will make a difference. So anytime I'm going to finish my thread, I want to lift my needle, lift my presser foot. I'm going to pull some slack in that bobbin and then come right back where I finished. And then I'm going to lower my foot, presser foot, insert my needle, bring it up, and there's my bobbin thread. Now I have two things. I'm looking for my scissors here. I know this one is coming off my needle, so I know I can cut that one as soon as I have some slack here. Do I lift that up? There we go. Get some slack in. This one is the loop, and that is my bobbin. It's going to be a loop. Now one of these is going to pull very easily. Right there, do you see? That one's pulling very easy. The other one pulls your project. So the one that pulls easy is pulling off the bobbin. And when you clip those two, all you're going to end up with is two threads on the top of your project. So you are ready to go, and there should be no threads whatsoever on the back side. And that's what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and let's do some loops. Now, this project I have already, I'll just show you the back. I've already quilted a certain portion of it, but what I'm showing you is that I have already basted the layers. I've done a little bit of spray basting, but I've already basted the layers, and there are some safety pins yet in it, but I'm going to keep on going, and I will start again in the middle. So I'm going to find one of my middle squares here, and we're going to work with it. Now, the reason I baste my quilts is because I want my squares to be square when I'm finished. And the only way I can do that is going in and using a very fine 100 weight thread to baste it in place, because I'm going to be pushing and pulling this all over the place. That's how I quilt. I'm not going to lie. But that's one of those tricks, is if you can baste your project. I'm going to have to probably rethread that. I just noticed I was pulling it out. If you can baste your project ahead of time, and I don't know if you can see this, but I even baste right around the outside edge, and then I just fold over and pin, so I'm not catching anything inadvertently when I'm not paying attention to it. But the more I can smooth this out and have it be pre-basted and ready to go, the happier I'm going to be. The other thing is I did starch my back fairly heavily so that it is nice and slick. And that's where that Supreme slider is going to be one of my best friends. So I'm over here at a seam. I'm gonna quilt this one right here. So we're gonna lower. Oh, we were lowered. I'm gonna go into the quilt sandwich, lift it up, lift my presser foot, and pull that bobbin thread to the top. All right. So I'm going to do a few stitches, and then I'm going to start doing some loops. Now this might be tiny because these are very tiny squares. I think they're only like 5-inch squares. It was just supposed to be a little sample, but I thought, you know what? You guys have not seen me quilt circles or loops. Loops are just like one of my favorite motifs, because most people can do a circle. There's my corner that I want to avoid. We're just going to come around here and fill up and just make some loopy fun if we can. Have a little bit of a little party going on here. I am shooting long and then coming back and filling it in. Now I have to go over here. I try to look ahead and don't really pay attention as to too much as to what's going on with my needle. I'm trusting the needle is working, but I'm looking at the whole block and going long, coming back in, looping, doing a double loop if I have to get an area covered that may not have any room or negative space available. I think that's a good practice too. But we're just making some loops, having a party over here. What do you guys think? Do you like to do loops? I'm telling you, if you can draw the letter O, you can make a loop. All right, I'm done. I have just filled that space. Now there's a little bit of space right here. I don't know if you can see it. So I might just travel down my seam ever so quietly and just throw in half a loop like it was intentional, like it's supposed to happen that way. And let's just do one more. Let me spin this around so you can see it. Maybe a little bit better, maybe not. I don't know. Let me zoom in. Let me try to get you in close, guys. I don't want to make you sick or anything, but okay. Hopefully you can see those loops. They're just kind of all over and just gave it a nice texture. That's what this thread really does when it blends in. These are very, very bold, very, very, how do I say, bold statements, because I wanted people to be able to see those motifs as I was quilting them. But I'm ready for these 9 patches to really sing, and the background, I just want it to kind of fade away. So I'm going to scoot on over and do one more square, and hopefully you will be able to watch as I do it up close. Here we go. We're just going to travel on in. How sneaky is that? All right, here's a loop, and I'm just going to head right into the middle, and I'm curling back and forth. I hope you can see this. Here we go. We're just going to go up. But I think if you lead with your circle, that's going to help you come back in and fill whatever negative space you might have that's available, to be just a slight more creative with it. One of the things too you want to be mindful of is don't go slow. If you go slow, I'm just going to pause here and put my needle in. Oh, and I do have my needle in the down position. If you go slow, what's going to happen is you're going to get octagons or hexagons. And if you go fast, you actually get more hits and it looks rounder. All right, wait, there was a question. Will I be taking the basting stitches out? Yes, unless I decide that it's really okay. I actually use a product. It's by Wonderfill. It's called Invisifil. It's very thin. It's like 100 weight. So if I can't get it out, I can leave it in. On this one, I might leave it in just for structure. It's not going to hurt. I have it both in the bobbin and in the top. And I used a really long stitch, a 3, with my digital dual feed to assist me in getting a really great, basting stitch. All right, so we're gonna swing long, come back around. Let's go in the middle here, do a circle, and maybe one. Ooh, that's kind of close, but oh well, we made it happen. My llama doesn't seem to mind. I'm gonna go long, coming back down. But yeah, I probably based a lot more than the average stitcher. I think that's probably just because of just knowing, and I've quilted myself in a corner, guys. I'm gonna have to do a little stitch in the ditch. Here we go. All right, we are free. Okay, here we go. Take it around, bring it around, and we are done. Now here again, I might want to just travel, but I've got 2 of them done. Any questions about what is my setting for my stitch length? I have it just on the, Dottie, I have it just on the standard, the default of it's 2 millimeters. But remember, your free motion quilting, the feed dogs are down. You are the stitch length, okay? You moving it. If you move it slow, you're going to get a lot of little stitches. If you move it really fast, you're going to get long stitches. You're the stitch length regulator when you're doing free motion quilting. Any other questions about this? Like I said, get yourself a notebook or a sketchbook, draw yourself some grids, and just start practicing. Let me go back over here and take out my thread. So I'm going to lift my needle, lift my presser foot, and then pull to get some slack in that bobbin and grab that top thread and come right back over where I was lower my presser foot, and insert that needle, and we're pulling that bobbin thread right up to the top. So here again, I'm holding on to the actual, to look for my scissors, I'm actually holding on to the needle thread so I know where I to clip that one. But here's that loop from the bobbin that came up, and because we pulled some slack in it, it's a little bit longer. And remember, one of these is going to pull off real easy, and one of these will pull the project. Cut the one that pulls easy, because that's your bobbin thread, guys. All right, I hope that makes sense. I've got a few more squares to do on this quilt before it gets finished, so maybe that's what we can shoot for. So I hope you have a great week and you are motivated to try some free motion quilting with your machine. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. In addition, to find out more about me and my work, check out my website, lindabrattencreations.com.